Good evening, everyone. So nice to join you virtually from home. Obviously, missing all of you in person. I'm feeling extremely disconnected in some ways. Hence the title for our talk tonight. So welcome to our virtual presentation. As usual, my disclaimer is I can't take any credit for the content tonight. Simply found some references to talk about the topic and put some slides together. So the goal tonight is to share some of this with you. How many of you are feeling disconnected? I guess we can't raise hands, right? I can't see it, but as I was saying, I'm really feeling it. It's been what? Has it been 8 weeks, 7 weeks? I don't know anymore. Since we've been to the center, since we've been able to collaborate together, to serve together, to learn together. So we'll do our best tonight. I am going to try to make, okay, now I can see my slides. So there's the references for tonight. Green Light, which is a great book written by Chico Xavier, from the Spirit, Andre Luis, I believe. A great daily read book. One of the books that we pick up in the morning just to read a quick message. The part of this topic tonight is from Green Light Chapter 1. And then question 919 from the Spirit's book, written by or codified by Allan Kardec. So let's jump into this, shall we? Green Light by Chico Xavier and the Spirit's book. Specifically, we're going to look at Chapter 1 in Green Light in question 919. So Green Light talks about waking up, how, and this makes sense, right? We can set the tone for the day many different ways. But if we start early, when we wake up, obviously, that's a good place to start. It's a lot easier to get ahead of the curve than it is to catch up to it, right? So Andre Luis talks about as soon as you wake up, thank God for the blessing of life. And I have to thank my friend Peter Roman for this. He taught me this a long time ago in a talk he did many, many years ago. And to this day, the first thing I do getting out of bed is I just say thank you, God. I don't add for the blessing of life. Maybe I'll start doing that, but thank you, God. All right? It just sets the tone. You're waking up with gratitude. Andre Luis goes on to say, if you don't pray, right, because not everybody prays, focus on serenity and optimism. It's real easy sometimes to wake up, especially now. I'm starting to work full-time again, and that alarm's going off earlier. It's real easy to get up with, oh, man, here we go, right? But we want to try to avoid that. We want to thank God for the blessing of life, and we just want to try to focus on serenity and optimism before we're starting any activity. Getting up calmly makes sense. I can remember earlier in life, maybe I was a heavier sleeper. Maybe I didn't want to get up, so I used to have a really loud alarm real close to my head, and I didn't get up very calmly at all. Nowadays, it doesn't take much to get me up. It's not a loud alarm. It seems to be gentle and calm, and I start my day. Additionally, Andre Luis tells us that if you're waking up other people, like I have 3 young kids that I wake up frequently, we should do it with gentleness and kindness, which I'm pretty good at nowadays, but it's tempting sometimes to be goofy, joking around, shouting, but we want to resist that. We want to wake up others calmly. I do my best in the morning not to wake up my wife because she's not getting up early, doesn't have to. So I try to be extra cautious there because, if she can sleep, that's great. And in this process of waking up and our attitude and with our optimism and serenity, we want to try to be prepared, right, for anything that's going to come our way, to cooperate with the people around us, with the people we're going to meet later. Just set ourselves up for cooperation and helping that good quality of life happen early on. And then obviously, before you start your tasks for the day, just remember it's necessary to be thankful for life, to bless life. Just thankful for another day, because frankly, I could have died in my sleep last night. So I'm real grateful and thankful every morning that I have another day. So when we talk about the title tonight, right, being connected, right, it really ties into self-knowledge, right? When we're connected to the world around us, it helps if we're connected to ourselves. It helps if we're connected to God, or whatever your beliefs are, right? Just being connected to that higher power. And that ties into question 919 from the Spirit's book, right? What's the most effective means for improving ourselves in this life and for resisting the attraction of negativity? What's the best way to do that? Well, the answer's been out there for centuries, right? This passage in the Spirit's book, this question is from the commentary, and this is from St. Augustine. And St. Augustine tells us in this chapter, in this section, that Plato taught us centuries ago, right? It's know yourself, right? By knowing yourself, you're definitely better connected, and you're better able to go through the world. And this wisdom of his, right, is really easy to comprehend. I've said this line hundreds of times in my life and really believed it, right? I believe in that wisdom, but it's really difficult, right, to precisely know ourselves. And going deep and understanding the causes between or stemming from previous actions and what have you. So it's easy to understand the wisdom, but it's definitely difficult to precisely know ourselves, is what St. Augustine is telling us here. And I agree with him. It's definitely easy to buy into the wisdom, but always knowing ourselves completely is a little bit harder, or perhaps acknowledging who we really are, right? As we dive deeper into this and we go over some technique or a process to really know yourself, you're going to see that part of knowing ourselves is also necessarily not liking some of the things we see and then making change. So what St. Augustine points out in his section here is connecting for tomorrow, right? Really starts tonight, right? If I want to be prepared for the morning, I need to start tonight. There's a time management guru that I've listened to, and for the life of me, I cannot remember her name right now. But just from a time management standpoint, one of the big recommendations, if you want to have a better day, if you want to have better time management tomorrow, you go to sleep earlier, or you prepare the night before, so that you lengthen your night by getting in bed earlier and having things prepared for the next day. So just from a non-spiritual standpoint, right? If we're just talking about time management and preparedness for our work and our day, it really starts the night before, and our moral predisposition, or disposition, I should say, and our spiritual path starts the night before as well. What St. Augustine says here is examine your conscience each night. So as I shared with you, Peter shared with me the gratitude piece in the morning and waking up thankful, and I've been doing that for years. What I haven't done consistently is this piece, examining your conscience each night. So when you put your head on the pillow at night, review the choices that we make, right? Just play through them, right? And you ask yourselves whether or not we failed to fulfill some duty, or whether or not anyone might have reason to complain about us. By doing this, right, the process allows us to know ourselves and identify what in us may need to be transformed. So for years now, following Peter's advice, I've woken up with gratitude, and inconsistently practiced this piece. So preparing for this talk, I've started doing this the last couple of nights, and it's an eye opener, right? Because as you play through your day and you think about your interactions, right, your thoughts, right, the things you said as well, plus your actions, what you did. It's very easy to find things that you could have done better, or better choices you could have made, or things you shouldn't have done. So tonight, going to bed, I'm going to continue this process, and I'll have answers for you on the process next time I see you. But this is where where it needs to start. And as we're asking ourselves what we've done, right, we also have to question ourselves about the intent, right? We had a big shakeup at work recently, without going into too much detail, but there were some changes made, and I remember when this announcement was made, right? I remember my first instincts, right, or my first thoughts, right? So going to bed that night, asking myself about choices I made, right? And I didn't say anything, I didn't do anything, but I had thoughts. And if I had to have that thought over again, my first thought about that change could have been much more positive. So this process helped me identify something that I definitely could work on. So additionally, in addition to asking ourselves about the intent, right? The question there is whether we've done anything that we would call others out for, right? So if it's something that I would point the finger, right, at somebody for, I shouldn't accept that it's okay for me to do the same thing. Have I done anything that I wouldn't want known to others? So it's very easy never to mention that thought that I had, right? But verbalizing it, right, for the purposes of this talk, reiterates to me is, something I could have done differently. So whatever your thing is, right, whatever your day goes, however it lays out, right, just reflect when you put your head on the pillow. Ask yourself about things you've thought, said, or done, right? And more importantly, right, or just as importantly, question and understand the intent. What was your intent? 'Cause I've gotten in trouble plenty of times for things I've said that my intent was really good. I get twisted in the tongue sometimes, and I'll make a comment where I'm really good intention, but it'll get inferred, right? So in those situations, right, I think intent is a big piece of the puzzle. So we all make mistakes, right? Things come out. What was our intent, right? So we have to question that. And then we're told that we should examine what we've done against a bunch of parties here, right? First and foremost, God, right? Ultimately, God, our Father. What have we done against Him, right? There's choices that we make that just don't coincide with those universal laws, right? What have we done against our neighbor, right? The neighbor could be the guy that lives next door. It could be the guy on the street. It could be your coworker. Are there things that I've said, done, or thought against my neighbor? And if there are, we identify those things. And most importantly, right, let's not forget ourselves. I'm really bad with this. I do my best on a daily basis to really treat people the way I'd want to be treated, to treat them with dignity and respect. I mess up every day, I'm sure. Some days more than others, but on a routine basis, right? I'm pretty bad to myself. And what I've noticed in this COVID process, it's gotten worse. I don't think there's anything wrong with critiquing yourself. I don't think there's anything wrong with pushing yourself and trying to be better. But it shouldn't be to the point where you treat yourself badly and you make bad choices. And being disconnected like I've been during this pandemic, just with the stress, right? Look, I'm so fortunate, right? I have my health, I have my job, my family has been relatively not touched by this directly, and yet I'm still in a funk, right? I still feel isolated. I still feel some anxiety. I still feel nervous, right? Business is impacted. Coworkers are impacted. Team members, right? So there's still elements of this that are causing angst for me. And again, I'm relatively unscathed in a lot of ways. So I just can only imagine what other people that aren't in that same situation. So we have to remember things we've done to ourselves that are negative, and put that into our accounting at the end of the night when we put our head on the pillow. So don't forget yourself. In other words, is what I'm saying. St. Augustine in this section goes on to tell us, right? This is the hard part, right? Or the easy part, depending on which side of the coin you're on. The answers to these questions, when we run through the day with our pillow, with our head on the pillow, and we ask ourselves those questions, right? You're either going to have repose for your conscience, right? Which means, hey, man, I did pretty good, right? Very peaceful that day, or I made great choices. On the other hand, though, when you have answers to those questions that you could have done better, or that you wronged someone, yourself, what have you, it's got to be amended, right? So it could cause some peacefulness and some calmness, or it could cause some angst, right? But this is good, right? It's hard, but it's good, because as you identify patterns, as you identify issues, if you do this nightly and you identify patterns, you're in the know now, so you can start correcting, right? Because remember, we talked about self-knowledge initially, right? Knowing ourselves, know thyself, right? That Plato taught us centuries ago. So the fact that you have identified it and you're thinking about it and you're talking to yourself about it, that's awesome, right? Because it's the key to individual improvement. If we can't identify things that we need to amend in our daily lives, morally, specifically as far as talking about the involvement of our soul, then we probably wouldn't be here anymore, right? We are eternal beings, right? In this particular life that I'm in, I've got the things I'm working on, some relatively known to me, right? Other things I still haven't uncovered. So asking myself these questions nightly and applying those parameters that we just discussed, I'm forcing myself to identify areas that need to be amended. And it's as hard as it can be sometimes. It's extremely important, and it gets easier. Again, I'm only a few nights in a row, so check with me in a month, when we talk again, and I'll let you know if it got easier. The hard part for this, I think, is how do we judge ourselves? What is the standard that we use? And we can answer this so many different ways, right? But what was clear in this reading was the benchmark should simply be how we would judge others, right? If they did what we did. If you'd blame somebody else for a mistake, or blame somebody else for treating people poorly or making bad choices, well, then you got to blame yourself. You got to use the same yardstick, the same measurement, right? So, and I'm really bad at this. A great example yesterday, nothing terrible, but a great example is this. I walked in the house, I cleaned up because I've been outside in the public, and I want to get cleaned up before I interact too much. But I walk into the kitchen, and there's some chicken that had just come out of the oven, and we were getting ready for dinner. And I grabbed the piece, right, with my fingers. And I started chewing on it. I walked away. I came back around the island, and my daughter's doing the same thing. She said, "Hey, get a plate," right? Great example, simple example, right? Like, hey, I did it, and I didn't find any fault with myself on it, right? But sure enough, man, somebody else did it, and I'm pointing the fingers. Like, hey, get a plate, right? Crazy, right? But simple things like that. If I'm going to blame my kid or give her a hard time for using her fingers and not having a plate, right? Then I got to get on myself as well. Does that make sense? It's pretty simple, but so hard, right? Easy to say, hard to do. So we're also advised, and it's recommended, that it's not just about our thoughts or perception, right? We should seek to know what others think. And I'm bad with this because I'm 53 years old. I've been employed. I've been self-employed. I've had lots of friends. I've had less friends. I've got a big network of colleagues, and my mantra as of late, the older I get, is I don't really care what people think, right? I know I've said that, especially in some professional dialogues like Facebook chats among other professionals. And, you make an opinion, and next thing you know, you got 20 haters or 10 haters. And I know I've said it. I don't really care what other people think, but it's kind of misguided. And this chapter helped me clue into that. That it's important to value what your friends and your family, your loved ones, the people that you have affinity with. It's important to listen to them and what they think, but we shouldn't neglect the opinions of our enemies or people that don't like us, if you will, right? Those haters on Facebook, right? Or groups that you might be in, or just on the street, right? Don't neglect the opinions of our enemies or those people that may not be our friends. Why? Right? Because they have no interest in disguising the truth. Look, if somebody close to me asks me a question and I know the answer might not be what they want to hear, I'm not going to lie to them, but I might sugarcoat it. I might deliver a softball instead of a hardball. But I can think of at least 3 or 4 people in the world that are not going to hold back on me. If they don't agree with something I'm doing or they have a different opinion, they're right in my face, right? Publicly sometimes. And that's important, right? Because what St. Augustine told us here was that our enemies can often serve as a mirror, right? Because they're going to give it to us from a different perspective than someone close. So don't get me wrong. Don't go out there and try to appease everybody that has a different opinion or speaks frankly with you. But listen to what they say and try to find the truth that might be in there. And putting your head on the pillow at night and going through this exercise is a good way to do that. And again, this is so much easier said than done. So the recommendation, right? Again, from question 919 is you can start slow, right? It's a process, right? Put your head on the pillow at night. Ask yourself 1 or 2 questions, or go through the day slowly, or don't get so detailed, but start, right? You can always add questions and more detail as the passing nights go by, right? As it gets easier, as it becomes more of a habit, you can definitely add as time goes by. And as you do this over time, what we're being told, right, is our feeling of being out of touch with ourselves, not knowing ourselves for the purposes of this talk, disconnected, right? That was the title of the talk. Our feelings of our being disconnected will lighten. And again, I'm 3 or 4 days into this. And honestly, I'm not feeling as heavy, but I'm not feeling super light yet, right? But I can tell by working these exercises that I'm starting to peel back the onion a little bit, or the edge. I think a big thing for me is as we get back to more normalcy, it's helping. Like my gym opens up next week, so I'm gonna wear a mask. I'm gonna be protected, but I think getting back into that routine of daily exercise is going to help me. Following this protocol or this process is going to help me. I think what we have to remember is we're all going through whatever we're going through. It's very easy to let ourselves get down, beat ourselves up, get anxious. But if we can somehow remember to wake up every morning with that serenity, try to be serene and try to have optimism. If you pray, obviously, thank God, pray, express gratitude for a new day is a great way to start. And as I've told you, for me, that in and of itself, doing that every day has not been enough for me to not feel disconnected. So adding these extra tools that we outlined tonight, I hope that helps you find peace or get more connected. I can't wait to see you guys back in the center at some point here in June, perhaps. So looking forward to it. But in the meantime, I just wish for all of you peace, serenity, stuff to connect as much as possible, and just try to one step at a time. And let's not lose sight of the big picture that we have all the tools that we need to overcome. The greatest counselor of all time, right? Christ walked the earth. He lived his life. It's well documented. We have his teachings in so many resources. Um, um, he's given us everything that we need to learn, right? And to live by. If we can simply do our best to emulate his life, right? And that whole piece on the bar, right? What standard should we use for judging ourselves? How we would judge our neighbor, right? He delivered that to us, right? That goes way back to Christ. Um, Loving our neighbor, right? Treating our neighbor like we would ourselves, loving our enemies, right? All this goes back to not my words, not St. Augustine, not the individual books we mentioned tonight. It goes way back, right, to Christ when he walked the earth and shared the good news with us. Love yourself, right? And love your neighbor like yourself, right? Love your enemies. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you for your time and attention tonight. And just may you allow yourself to receive all the peace that God's provided for us. Thank you so much, and see you soon. Thank you.